good day to you. Hope you're having a great day, and so glad that you could join me today and talking about giving your life and giving your all for God. And the first quote I want to start with, written by Elizabeth Elliot, is sometimes, and this is a partial of this quote, fear does not subside, and one must choose to do it afraid. Sometimes we just have to do things we're uncomfortable with, and that can be really hard. But I'm sure you've probably done something like that. And I know that I have, and it's just not easy. Anyway, last week we looked at Corrie ten Boom, and she was a great hero of the faith to thousands that she inspired through her books, and then actually later through a movie. She hid people during World War II in her home with her family so that the Gestapo wouldn't get them. And it's, we talked last week that they saved probably about 800 people. Then she went on to teach and write, and after she lived through the concentration camp. So she had a very inspiring story. And this week, we're going to look at Jim and Elizabeth Elliot. So I'm going to give you some background in case you don't know who they are. Many of you have probably heard of them or the group of people with them. Theirs is a really inspiring story. Just their heart of compassion for people they didn't know to share the gospel to is just amazing. They knew God led them to that place in Ecuador, and they felt the urgent need to share the gospel. And I just kind of like that phrase, the urgent need to share the gospel. And they had gone to language school to learn Spanish, and they decided they needed to head to the jungle. They'd had a good command of the language, and they thought it's time to go. And they decided they would go to Ecuador and study with the, I don't know if I'm slaying this, Quechua Indian village. Many accepted Christ there and were growing in their faith. And Jim had heard of a tribe not that far away where this current village that they're in said that the people were mean and killed people, and nobody would go there and help them with anything. Nobody would go there, and no missionary would go there and share the gospel with them. And he just felt a real stirring within him that these people needed to hear the gospel. And so he really wanted to make that happen. And they'd been studying with and helping this village with there was four other missionary couples that were also interested in helping the Aqua, I don't know how you say it, Aqua tribe. So they decided that they would go. They were working not too far away. I don't really know the distance. And they wanted to make sure that this tribe knew that they meant well and that they weren't going to hurt them. So Nate Saint, who was a Missionary Aviation Fellowship pilot, decided they would drop care packages near their village, on the beach near their village. And so they had done that for quite a while, for several months. And then finally, the Alcuas sent back a gift back up. And so they thought, well, it's probably safe to meet them in person. So one day, Nate flew over the village to encourage them to come to the beach. And two women and a man ended up going on a flight and having lunch with him. And then they said, okay, well, we're going to come back and share a meal with you. And they encouraged more of them to come. And they waited several days. And then all five men, Ed McCulley, Roger Udrian, Nate Saint, Pete Fleming, and Jim Elliot, all went to the beach that day. And a couple people kind of came out till they were out of the plane and onto the beach. And then all of a sudden a group of warriors came with spears and ran toward them and killed all five men. That afternoon, Elizabeth, the women were getting worried. Elizabeth was waiting by the two-way radio. and they just didn't return. And so the United States went in, and they flew over and they saw where the plane was, and it was just the plane, and they didn't see the men. Then they went and they searched and they found the bodies. You might think, oh man, this is just tragedy. Why would they do such a dangerous thing? And then why did this happen? And Operation Aqua was not a failure. Many of them became Christians through what they had learned from other missionaries, and they saw what happened and that other people continued to care about them. And it really had an effect on them. And 2 years later, Elizabeth and Nate's sister moved to the village. And they were now a friendly tribe. And so you just look at all those things, and although it was hard, I mean, Elizabeth still felt that she was called to go there. And actually, I saw these women interviewed on, I mean, this is a while ago, so it might have been different shows, but like Dateline or something like that. And they were said, why would you do this? Why would you go back? That's just wrong of you to go back. And they all said, well, if we had felt called to go to begin with, just because this happened didn't mean that God still didn't want us to go there. And Elizabeth went on to write several books. After she quit working there, she stayed there a couple of years. Shadow of the Almighty, The Life and Testament of Jim Elliot, and Through Gates of Splendor, which became a movie, actually, and maybe you've seen that movie. Also, End of the Spear was written, and that had to do a lot with Nate Saint. So both of these movies, if you're not a reader, both of these movies would be great for you to watch and read these books, because it's really encouraging for all of us how to be bold with our faith. In Jim's journal, October 28th, 1949, he quotes Luke 9:24. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it. Whoever will lose his life for my sake, the same will save it. Then he wrote a citation from Luke 16:9. That when we shall fail, we may receive into you everlasting habitations. Elizabeth spent 2 years working in that tribe. And then, she just went on to be one of the most influential women of the 20th century. She remained faithful despite extremely difficult times. A quote from her about the Aucas. The Auca was trying to preserve his own way of life, his own liberty. He believed foreigners were a threat to his people and to that liberty. So he feels that he had the right to kill them. In America, we decorate a man for defending his country. She lived her life to the fullest, and she inspired so many people, me included. She was very inspiring. I'm amazed at the dedication of these believers. And it really encourages my walk to see this dedication. I wanted to, quote another couple quotes by her to you. Here's one that we can hardly imagine a love that does not show itself in protection from suffering. The love of God is of a different nature altogether. It does not hate tragedy. It never denies reality. It stands in the very teeth of suffering. That's so true, because our faith just grows and grows when we have a trial or we suffer. Things that may not have happened. I know in my own life that happened. It's like you look back and you think, why in the world did that happen at the time? And then 10 years later you go, oh, this and this and this and this all happened because that happened. And then you see God's plan because he knows what's best. Here's another quote. The fact is, as believers, it's not about us. It's not about my happiness, my joy, my well-being. It is about the glory of God and the kingdom of Christ. The only means to real joy and contentment is to make his glory the supreme objective in my life. That's so true. What is our main objective? Do we think about others and their future? Do we think about our eternity? Do we think about what brings glory to God? Here's another one. The fact that I'm a woman does not make me a different kind of Christian, but the fact that I'm a Christian makes me a different kind of woman. And that's really important. We think about the fact that sometimes we just limit ourselves as women, and we think, well, men are preachers, and men. I mean, this has really affected my ministry. I don't preach to men. I mean, I don't think that women are really supposed to preach to men, but obviously they can be in the room, and if you're teaching something or you're praying or something, it's okay. But my ministry is mainly to women, but I just see how God can use me, and doesn't have to be some fancy thing, or I don't have to be leader of a church. I can minister to a group of 3 women just sitting, and I can pray with them, and we can do all sorts of things. And we shouldn't limit ourselves because something's happened, or if we really feel God has called us to do something, we need to follow through on what that is. And I think the story of Jim and Elizabeth Elliot, here's this young guy struck down in the prime of life, and the other guys too. And he didn't know that was going to happen, but I'm sure he knew the danger associated with things. I mean, and he was going to do it if God wanted him to, and he just felt for that tribe, that nobody wanted to go there and help them. Everyone was scared of them. And then within 2 years of his death, the tribe isn't a scary tribe anymore. And there's a lot of believers, and they're growing, and the tribe is happier, and the other villages aren't scared of them. It's so sad that they all got killed, but this is what happened. And God used those men, in a mighty, mighty way, ways that we can't even really comprehend fully. And, I'm not saying you should go do something like this. Don't think I'm condoning that you do this or making that you have to do something like that. God has you where he wants you. I guess the idea is to not be scared of something and to do what he wants you to do, no matter how unsettling it may seem to you. It's like, oh, man, I really felt like he wants me to do this, But if you don't do it, that's worse. That's going to make you feel worse. And you need to follow through on what he has for you. I think the thing that's neat about studying some of these heroes of our faith, and we're going to continue with that the next couple weeks, is that they're inspiring to us, and you're going to connect with one of them. Maybe not Corrie ten Boom, maybe not Jim and Elizabeth Elliot, but one of the ones we're going to talk about in the next couple weeks, you're going to say, I understand that. I understand why that person did that. And, I'm just amazed and, by them. Next week, I think we're going to do, I'm not positive yet, but I think we're going to do Billy Graham. And the thing with Billy Graham is a lot of us have heard him speak, or seen video of him speaking, or have heard his son speak, Franklin Graham. But Billy Graham touched thousands and thousands of people, and just hundreds of sometimes he spoke to 200,000 people at a time without a microphone. Go figure. We have so much special technology now, and they just had to learn to have a really deep voice and a booming voice and use their voice. And because you don't always have something, some tool with you. Nowadays, we have so many means of doing things, but we might be out in the middle of nowhere and not have the ability to do that either. So it's a kind of an inspiring story about his background, which I actually didn't really know a lot of that. And so it was when I researched for this book, I read and found out all sorts of interesting things about Billy Graham. So I am really excited to share that with you next week. So I hope you turn in. And if you don't, aren't part of our Live Boldly group, you could subscribe to YouTube if that's easier for you. And, we want both available to people. And I hope you tell people to join us. And I hope you enjoyed this story about Jim and Elizabeth Elliot. And I hope you have a great week and that you really pray for God to show you your path on things that you could do to share the gospel of Christ with someone. Have a great week, and I'll pray for you. You pray for me, and God bless.